Welcome to Straight Talk. I am joined today by Senator Ray Lesniak and Assemblyman Michael Patrick Carroll. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. The first topic of the day is grading President Biden. Let's take a look at his report card. Michael Patrick Carroll, what grade do you give President Biden?
Unfortunately, we don't have enough letters because you've only got 26, and it's kind of hard to find anything that the president has done in his first couple of months in office that are actually making the country stronger, more prosperous, or freer. He's created almost single-handedly a catastrophe at the border. He has rammed through $1.9 trillion in borrowed money to bail out big union pension funds, profligate blue states, and provide handouts, freebies, and giveaways like you would not believe. So again, at the end of the day, I look at it and say, we Republicans were more than willing to work with William Jefferson Clinton to create good policy. We would have been more than happy to work with Barack Obama if he ever suggested any. And we do the same for Joe Biden if he was your father's Joe Biden, running on the record he made when he's in the Senate. Unfortunately, he's abandoned any degree of common sense he once entertained. Senator,
grade for President Biden, go.
Well, not surprisingly, I beg to differ. I would give him an A, particularly in comparison to the disaster that we had for the last 4 years with President Trump. And most importantly, in terms of the way Trump handled the coronavirus, the reaction to that, and the way that Biden's handling that. I mean, Trump just basically ignored it, poo-pooed it. It's going to go away. It's going to get warmer. It'll be 5 or 6 cases. You can take Clorox and pour it down your throat, and everything's going to be all right. That's what we had as president for 4 years. We had a clown. And now we have a serious president who is focusing on getting vaccines in arms. And part of getting vaccines in arms was the huge bailout, yes, $1 trillion plus money for not only getting vaccines in arms, but for helping municipalities and states. The state of New Jersey benefited to the tune of $6 billion because of the loss of revenues during the pandemic. I would have given him an A+, but I do believe he bears some responsibility for, yes, the crisis at the border, for not being prepared. I mean, it's 20% more than what happened under Trump, but Biden should have been prepared for it. And he's taken a long-range view towards making it less likely for people to come through country after country, risk their lives in order to escape and flee their country. But he should have been better prepared for it. So therefore, he does not get an A+, he gets an A.
Assemblyman, what does Senator Lesniak not understand about giving President Biden an A? Why shouldn't it be an A? Go.
Well, first of all, the fact is the most recent $1.9 trillion has nothing to do with the coronavirus. They haven't even spent the money they got in the previous couple $100 billion or $1 trillion bills. Secondly, of course, Trump does in that entire diatribe, we didn't hear one word about Operation Warp Speed, nor did we hear a word about what Biden is doing differently than what Trump had already planned, because he's doing nothing. Remember, one of Biden's most famous lines was, Trump has no plan and I have a plan. Okay, I'm still waiting to hear it. Where is this vaunted plan? It doesn't exist. Again, the crisis at the border was not something that he should have been prepared for necessarily. It's one he invented himself. He invited it. He said, basically, words speak or actions speak louder than words. Come on in. We're not going to send any of these unaccompanied minors home. 20,000 kids ripped from their families, from their loving parents. We can fly them to the Canadian border to be processed. We can't fly them home. That makes sense whatsoever.
All of a sudden, the Republicans are caring about ripping children from their parents. All of a sudden, but with Trump for 4 years, it didn't matter. Actually, they exploited it. They wanted it. And the money has gone towards COVID vaccinations. We funded the National Guard to come in. We're funding vaccinators. We're helping municipalities and counties and states with money to create these used vaccination sites and also mobile vaccination sites. And it's quite a relief from the fact that President Trump, as Deborah Birx recently said, is probably responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths. because he poo-pooed it.
Let's stop right there.
He made fun out of masks. He didn't take any advice from the scientists, and as a responsible, those deaths are on his watch.
Let's stop right there. First of all,
and regrettably, because he didn't think it was serious enough.
Let's stop right there. First of all, the money we're spending was adopted under Trump, not under Biden. So that's an untruth right off the bat. But let me ask you a simple question, scientist. What would you have done differently than what Donald Trump did? Your ball.
I would have taken it seriously from the get-go. I would have directed national implementation of wearing masks.
How?
Of how?
Where does the president get the right to do that?
How? By executive order. I would have set an example. I wouldn't have made fun out of wearing masks. I wouldn't have made fun out of the fact that businesses have to change their way of business to keep people separate from each other in order to avoid the crisis and more than 500,000 deaths that this incompetent and non-caring and clown of a president did during his last 2 years in office.
You know, that's a good narrative. Of course, there's not a fact that has come forth in that entire speech that has anything to do with reality. The fact of the matter is that the Democrats,
the fact that the president is a clown is a reality.
Not one Democrat throughout the full year that Trump was in office after this virus came out, not one Democrat ever made a suggestion as to what we should actually do. They mocked him. They opposed him. For example, you can say what you want about his suggestions for treatments or what have you. They should have said, hey, Mr. President, that's great. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. But we're with you to fight this virus together. I didn't hear a single Democrat do that. I heard de Blasio say, come to China.
Well, then you know what? You go to get your ears checked.
Come to China.
Assemblyman, get your ears checked. Because not only did I, but many Democrats throughout the country were complaining about the complacency with which the president handled this crisis.
Complacency is not a plan. The fact that
get your ears checked, Assemblyman. There were plenty of Democrats yelling out for the governor of Michigan. The Republican governor of Maryland was complaining. He had to go to get his Korean wife, to help to get PPP equipment because the president would not take a national policy towards getting protective gear as well. He wouldn't use the national defense authorization to make companies produce these facts like we did during World War I, World War II. This was a world war against our people, and the president treated it as a TV show.
Do you know a single company that could have made masks that didn't do it?
Sure, there are plenty of them throughout the country. And guess what? Did he try? Did he even try? Well, remember, you got to try. The first step you have to take is try. He didn't even try because he didn't care. He didn't care because he didn't treat this disease as serious. It was going to go away. 4 or 5 people, and when the sun shines, it's just going to miraculously go away. He was a joke. He was a clown. Thank God at least Biden isn't a clown.
Gentlemen, the adoption of legalized marijuana here in the great state of New Jersey. We will start this segment out with Senator Lesniak. Yay, nay, go.
Well, definitely yay, but I have to say that it took me a while to come around to supporting legalized marijuana. I'm deeply involved in recovery programs. I have the Raymond J. Lesniak Experience, Strength and Hope Recovery High School for teenagers who have substance use disorders. It's a great program for them to be sober and learn at the same time and remove themselves from the people, places, and things that got them addicted in the first place. So those folks were very concerned with legalizing marijuana, but I came around to realize that it basically is legal. It's accessible, so it should be regulated. And just unfortunately, look, it's no worse than alcohol. So I support the legalization of marijuana. And by the way, I supported early on the medical use for marijuana.
Assemblyman, your take.
I haven't changed my mind since I was in college. It should have been, there's no reason for the government to be involved with this plant at all. And I should say, in the interests of perhaps you'll maybe believe me like you believe Bill Clinton, you're talking to the world's straightest arrow. I have never smoked a joint, never done a line, never popped a bill. I don't even drink that heavily, if at all. So it's purely a philosophical question. I look at the carnage that has been wreaked upon millions of lives by the attempt of blue-haired Puritans to outlaw what amounts to a weed. It's not called weed for nothing. Why? Every rational policy ought to be made on the basis of a cost and a benefit. The cost is clear. Ruined lives, lots of police activity, people getting involved with cops and getting courts and probation officers losing jobs in the Biden White House of all places. That's a big cost. And the benefits are, now, I personally think that the present governor complicated the obvious much more than he should have. He should have simply adopted my bill, which was to eliminate the word marijuana wherever it appears in the statutes and let things go at that. I disagree with the senator. I don't think we need much in the way of regulation. We should treat it more or less like tomatoes. If you want it, there it is. And if you're
what I don't want is a Joe Camel, what we did with cigarettes, enticing children to use marijuana. And by the way, I tried it twice, and which is surprising that I only tried it twice, since I was in the Army and I in school and college during the 60s, when it was just about everybody was trying it. I didn't like it. It tightened my chest. Thankfully, I didn't get any benefit from it. But it's a thing that people do enjoy. We've had medical testimony that it's not addictive, and I agree with the Assemblyman on this. We should have legalized marijuana use in the state of New Jersey, and indeed in the United States of America.
That's exactly the next thing. Is the one place where I disagree with State Scalia was when he refused to overturn the ruling in the infamous wheat using case, because marijuana should not be treated as a product moved in interstate commerce. It is a purely local undertaking. You should be allowed to grow it if you want. Again, they still wrote this 100-page bill, more I think along the lines of trying to raise revenue than to actually advance freedom. It would have been a simple haul, a simple lift. I disagree with the process, but at least it's better than what we had before.
Last and not least, Assemblyman, report card for Governor Murphy. Go.
Governor Murphy is one of the most disciplined politicians I've ever met. You listen to his script is always the same: stronger and fairer, stronger and fairer, stronger and fairer. It's not true, but it's the script. You look at we started talking about the coronavirus. Murphy's handling of that was an unmitigated catastrophe. Thousands of people died who hadn't died because he ignored the science. He, Cuomo, Wolf, what's the woman's name out in Michigan? I forget. And Newsom out in California were the only five to send this bug off into nursing homes. I remember the very first reaction he had was to panic. Just outright panic. We got to close down beaches. We got to close down borders. We got to close down parks. But then when he decided he had to march, all of a sudden, none of those restrictions played any part anymore. Economically, the state's a basket case. We had to borrow $4 billion because we couldn't pay our bills. He's forever using envy as a motivation. We got to tax those rich people. Now they're all leaving. And the simple fact of the matter is that he has been a catastrophe from the start on virtually everything. Again, I would have been more than happy to work with him to legalize marijuana if I were down there at the time, because you work with people when they're right on the ideas. But it's very hard to find an idea that he's been right on.
Senator, report card, Governor Murphy.
I would give him a C. I don't like particularly the fact that he let our economic incentives, which I sponsored, expire for over a year and a half. Thankfully, we got them going again, and businesses will start not fleeing and coming into New Jersey, which admittedly, we are the number one most business unfriendly state in the nation. So we need tax incentives. And was not happy with the governor on that. Not happy with the governor because he campaigned on ending the bear hunt, and he continued the bear hunt. So he went back on his word on that. I think he handled the COVID crisis well. there were mistakes made. There were mistakes made throughout the country, but he took the bull by the horns. Yes, we did have to have shutdowns, and we had to have schools closed, and he took the bull by the horns and did it. So overall, I'll give him a C.
Well, the senator and I kind of disagree on tax incentives, although I'm glad to see that he admits that low taxes actually bring businesses to a state or keep them here. We keep raising taxes on businesses generally, and then creating these high-profile exceptions for usually politically powerful or well-connected firms. Oftentimes, curiously enough, in places like Camden, wonder why that happens. We should just cut taxes for everybody. Same thing.
I don't know what the Assemblyman has against what was the poorest city in the country and now is making a huge rebound thanks to my tax incentives.
Well, the fact of the matter is again, it was your tax incentives and I think a little push from a guy named Norcross. But
God bless him. Thank God.
I have
praised George Norcross for helping out the poorest city in the country.
Well, and how did it get to be the poorest city in the country? And I think one of the reasons is because we.
Oh, you're going to blame George Norcross for making Camden the poorest city?
You got to admire the man's dedication to his hometown, or his home area. But the simple fact of the matter is New Jersey suffers greatly, as he said, from being the worst business climate in the country. That hasn't improved these last 4 years. The taxes have increased, regulations have increased, mandates have increased.
And I suppose it improved the last 8 years under Governor Christie?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We had,
sure.
I mean, how many tax increases do we have under Christie? Zero. So the fact of the matter is that you, I mean, if the worst that you can say about Governor Christie is he didn't make anything worse as compared to McGreevey and Corzine and Cody and now Murphy, he stands out.
The worst you can say about Governor Christie is he shut down a bridge in order to get political retribution against people who wouldn't endorse him. And he sat there on the beach. He closed all the other state parks while he lounged with his family on the beach when other New Jersey families had to stay in their homes.
Yeah, personal stuff. Let's get to policy. And the policy he put through even with respect to working together with Senate President Sweeney to help start the pension reform thing was a good start. But then again, you come to Phil Murphy, and he has absolutely refused to do kind of things that are necessary to reform pensions, has been in the pocket of the NJEA. He's consistently put the needs of the people behind the needs of public employee unions. And it's a tragedy. I mean, New Jersey grew up being a low tax, low regulation alternative to New York. And now we've sent people fleeing to Pennsylvania. I mean, who would ever want to live in Western Pennsylvania?
Actually, businesses are clamoring to come from Brooklyn to New Jersey now that we have new tax incentive program. But I have to give Governor Christie credit for he signed my ban on transactions in ivory and rhino horns to keep them from extinction. He signed my legislation banning imports and transportation of trophies of endangered species. On the other hand, he vetoed the ban on gestation crates, and he also vetoed the ban on elephants and wild animals in circuses. But I'll give him a C on those issues, but at least he did some good things for sure.
Again, we're not grading him, we're grading the present incumbent. And, I look at the state of New Jersey, say, ask the question that Ronald Reagan asked. Are we better off now than we were 4 years ago? And the answer is unquestionably no.
Quick follow-up lightning round, sound bites from each of you. Should and will the governor be reelected? Assemblyman, go.
No, and who knows?
Senator.
Yes, it's a Democratic state, and even I could get elected governor.